Hi everybody and welcome to the world of Micah. Today we're going to be downtown Orlando, where I'm going to be showing you guys exactly where Walt Disney announced Walt Disney World. Now, it wasn't announced as Walt Disney World, but Disney did announce that Disney, quote unquote, Disney was coming to Central Florida. It's going to be a lot of fun, a little historical journey today down here in Orlando, and you guys are going to get to tag along, so let's take a closer look.
Let's take a closer look.
Right now we are currently on North Orange Avenue in downtown Orlando, Florida. And back in 1965, some crazy events happened down in this little city, the City Beautiful. So as the story goes, October 21st, 1965. You know, October 21st has a lot of significance to it. Back to the Future Day, the day I got married, fun fact for you. And back in 1965, on October 21st, the Star Sentinel, which is now the Orlando Sentinel, released a story from a lady named Emily Bavar. And the headline of the story in the newspaper read, "We say Mystery Industry is Disney," and it revealed details of the upcoming Florida project that Walt and all of his men were trying to keep quiet. So basically, Disney was trying to keep this Florida project under wraps. They were buying land little by little, using different aliases, and different men were buying these properties. Disney was trying to keep this hush-hush. And during the 10th anniversary of Disneyland, he met with Emily Bavar and kind of, as he said, spilled the beans a little bit, having a little bit too much knowledge about Central Florida. He even said to her, I believe, I saw in a quote, that he knows all about Central Florida. Got her kind of thinking. Emily was a very smart girl. Put two and two together, kind of connected the dots, and she realized Walt, or Disney, the word Disney, the family Disney was coming to Central Florida. And then just a few short days later, on Sunday, October 24th, the Sentinel-Star released a second story stating that Disney was planning on creating two cities, yesterday and tomorrow. Those would be the names of the cities that Walt and Disney was supposedly planning. And when I read that headline online talking about Walt planning to build cities here in Central Florida, my mind immediately went to Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Epcot, Progress City. Oh, how incredible would that have been? But we all know that none of those things actually came into fruition. It was Walt Disney World, what we know now. We're gonna go find the Sentinel-Star right now. So here's the parking right here for visitors, advertising, employment, and receiving, and this is the building. And this is where Emily Bavar worked back in the 60s and created both stories talking about Disney coming to Central Florida. This is it, my friends. Now it is known as the Orlando Sentinel, but back then this was known as the Sentinel-Star. Somewhere in this building, Emily Bavar sat and typed out, printed, and released two stories just a few days apart from each other, spilling the beans about Disney coming to Central Florida. And you gotta think, 1965, Disneyland had only been open for 10 years at this point, and Disney was a household name, just like it is today. When Disney did something, people did not ignore it. It was a huge deal. And then when people in Central Florida started reading the headlines talking about Disney coming to Central Florida, hysteria broke out. And we're moving on to our next location now, where a gentleman by the name of General William Potter was working out here in Central Florida. He had worked on the New York's World Fair with Disney, and now he was working with Walt on the upcoming Florida project. And we're gonna go where William Potter woke up that Sunday, October 24th, and read that headline, immediately he had to call California and let Walt know that this was what was happening in the Sunshine State. Hey, I did pretty good. I got 7 minutes left. I put 18 minutes on this thing, and we still have 7 minutes left to go. Next stop is going to be here on East Washington Street, where back in 1965, this building right here was known as the Robert Mayer Motor Inn. It was a hotel, and this is where General William Potter woke up that Sunday morning, walked down to get his breakfast, grabbed the newspaper, and saw the headline. He immediately phoned California to let Walt and the rest of the gang know what Emily Bavar had done. Right here at 151 East Washington Street. Now, this building is now known as the Metropolitan and is no longer a motor inn. But back in 1965, this was a very popular hotel to stay in, and General William Potter chose to stay here. He knew that the word was out, that Disney was coming to Central Florida, and he knew Walt had to get the story straight. He knew Walt, his brother Roy, were trying to keep things under wraps because hysteria would have totally happened if they hadn't got the story straight. So they knew they had to come over here from California and let the public and the world know what Disney had planned and what was officially gonna come to Central Florida. So General William Potter would have been sitting in that building, reading his paper, trying to eat some breakfast, probably skipped breakfast after reading the headline. And he probably looked out the window, and this would have been his view. Lake Eola Park. This place was established in 1883. And right in the center is that famous fountain. Hard to believe a lot of Disney history happened surrounding this famous lake. And our next location is also surrounding this famous lake. The former home of the Cherry Plaza, where Walt, his brother Roy, and Governor Hayden Burns announced to the world that Disney was in fact coming to Central Florida. Something that blows my mind about this location too, right over here, right where I am pointing, is the former home of that motor inn I was telling you about, where General William Potter read the newspaper about Disney coming to Central Florida. And right here straight ahead is now the Walt Disney Amphitheater. Crazy how time and history and things change. This was not here back in 1965, but it sits here today. How incredible. Walt has his own amphitheater out here, directly across from where William Potter read the headline talking about Disney coming to Central Florida. Pretty wild. Walt Disney Amphitheater at Lake Eola. Right there. And William Potter was probably sitting somewhere in those rooms right over there when he read the headline. Stuff like this blows my mind. And now we have made it to our final stop of the day. Exactly where Walt had his press conference with Governor Hayden Burns and his brother Roy. It happened inside this building here, which used to be the Cherry Plaza. Now it is known as the Post Parkside City Apartment Homes. So when Walt found out about this newspaper article, he said there was no one really to blame but himself. He might have spilled some beans to Emily when they were talking about Disney in the Tencennial anniversary, the 10th anniversary of Disneyland. But he knew he had to take some immediate action and get the story straight. So he and his brother headed to Florida. And now we're gonna go visit our final location where the official press conference happened. Right here inside this very building, which used to be called the Cherry Plaza Hotel, on November 15th, 1965 at 2 p.m. in the Egyptian Room, Walt, his brother Roy, and Governor Burns shared to the world that Disney was in fact coming to Central Florida. And during the press conference, Walt had to choose his words wisely in his announcement for Disney coming to Florida, because he didn't know exactly what they were going to do, because it was the very early stages of the Florida project. And you can imagine people sitting in that press conference just waiting to hear Disney say the words, Disneyland is coming to Central Florida. Everyone wanted him to say that. They were expecting it, and everyone wanted Walt to say that they were bringing Disneyland to Florida. That was the ultimate dream. That was the American dream back in the day. Still is. Disneyland is very Americana. And for a place like Central Florida back in 1965, no one would even think about that, would even dream about Disneyland coming here. Most people would never even make it to California, let alone Anaheim, to visit Disneyland. Imagine thinking about the possibility of Disneyland being in your backyard. What a time. And during this press conference, Walt was talking about how he and his brother Roy had learned so much in the last 10 years from Disneyland, that they knew how to do things a little different than they did back when Disneyland opened in 1955. Then, Governor Burns asked the question, is Disneyland coming to Florida? And Walt said these words.
I've always said there will never be another Disneyland, Governor. And I think it's going to work out that way. But it will be the equivalent of Disneyland. We know the basic things that have this, what I call family appeal. But there's many ways that you can use those certain basic things and give them a new decor, a new treatment. In fact, I've been doing that with Disneyland. Some of my things, I've redone them as I've gone along, reshaped them. Right now, I'm in the process of adding $20 million new things to open next June at Disneyland. But this concept here will have to be something that is unique, and so that there is a distinction between Disneyland in California and whatever Disney does. Notice I didn't say Disneyland in Florida. Whatever Disney does in Florida.
After the press conference, people were kind of not let down. They were just confused. It was kind of anticlimactic in a sense, because people didn't know exactly what Walt was bringing to Central Florida. But all that changed later on when a film was made about Walt talking about the Florida project. So right up here they had a banner hanging with Mickey Mouse on it that said Cherry Plaza welcomes Walt Disney. And this is what it looks like nowadays. Matches up pretty good. Haven't changed too much of the building. But just think of the excitement, if you will, seeing this banner again. What would you do if you were walking downtown 1965 in Orlando, Florida, on the opposite coast of the United States from where Disneyland was, and you looked up and saw a banner with Mickey Mouse on it and the name Walt Disney? I can't even begin to fathom the amount of excitement people had here in Central Florida for just seeing the word Walt Disney in Central Florida. You got to think, Disney was not here in Central Florida at all. Disney was a total West Coast name, and now it had made its way here to Central Florida. And right about here is where this photo was taken. It used to say Cherry Plaza. Now it's the Post Parkside Apartment Homes. The front has been redone, but you can see to the far right, still kind of looks the same. The middle section of the building has changed significantly, but this right here was the Cherry Plaza. And right here is where the limousine would have pulled up, and Roy Disney would have been greeted by some police officers, some security guards. And you can see Roy stepping out of the car right here. Now in the background, all these buildings have been built and erected since 1965, but this is the spot right here. Pretty crazy. Roy Disney got out of a limousine right there, and shortly following, right behind him, was his brother Walt. And right about here is where this photograph was taken. You can see Walt getting out of the limousine and looking up at the Florida sun. Governor Hayden Burns was standing right to his left, and the limousine right behind Walt. Look across the street. There used to be a house. You can see the double chimney. And there was a congregation of people standing out there because they knew that Walt was in Orlando. And they would have made their way right through this little corridor here. Now there used to be glass and a door that you had to walk through to get into this area right here. In fact, the photograph was taken right about here. You can see Walt and a few gentlemen behind him walking in to the Cherry Plaza. Pretty wild. Walt was greeted by all kinds of fans and a lot of people just wanting to know what Walt was bringing to Central Florida. And as you can see on the ground here, it looks like at one point this is where the glass was. Just looking at this photograph, the overhang is here, and then you would probably walk through the double doors right here. Just guessing, just looking at little things like markings. Definitely show signs of a door that used to be here. And inside this building is where the press conference happened, in the Egyptian room. Okay, we're in. This is crazy. This is where Disney would have walked in. Right through here. Now we gotta find where the Egyptian room used to be, hopefully. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Maybe back here somewhere. No? Check out the old letterbox. That's amazing. But right here is where Disney would have walked through. So it's completely changed in here as far as everything goes. The elevators here, you have to go somewhere, but everything over where I just went is just stuff for maintenance. But at least we made it inside the building. Pretty awesome. We made it inside the Cherry Plaza. And I'm pretty satisfied. I don't know exactly where the Egyptian room is, but anyways, we made it inside. What's so funny to me now, Stardust Lounge looks like Tomorrowland to me, and then the Aku Aku Tiki Bar. Tiki, Tomorrowland, so much Disney is still here. Pretty crazy to think that we're on the brink of 50 years since Walt Disney World opened here in Central Florida. And to think back in 1965, Florida Disney history started right here in this very building. And it's crazy to think how much has exactly grown in this area. None of these buildings were here. These were all houses. And this is where it all went down. This is where it all took place. And if you're ever wanting to visit the Post Parkside City Apartments, the former home of the Cherry Plaza, the address is 425 East Central Boulevard, Orlando, Florida 32801. And you and your friends and family can visit the very building where Walt made his announcement. Well, you guys, we did it. We found exactly where Walt Disney announced Disney coming to Central Florida. Which means it's time to say goodbye. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. If you would like to support my channel, please visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/worldofmicah. We're donating $1 a month can help fund episodes just like this. Shout out to my Patreon family for helping me fund today's episode by paying for the meters where I parked my car. That was completely funded by you guys. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got to come to downtown Orlando together and find exactly where Walt announced Disney coming to Central Florida. If you haven't yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button because it's free and it will keep you updated with my latest video. And the next time you're here in downtown Orlando, swing by the Post Parkside City Apartments and pay your respects. It's pretty cool to come down here and think that Walt walked on these very steps. I'll see you on the next episode of World of Micah, everybody. Until then, stay weird. Goodbye.